Welcome back to the fucking Red Line Podcast. So we're back here for another episode. We are here today with Patrick Joyce. And I met Patrick about 3 years ago. We were just starting a business. We spoke to you and Justin Michael, asking about a bunch of ideas after reading about Spears and how you helped him. And I still remember the ABSD Google Sheets you put together. That I still use to this day. So I brought Patrick on here because he's got a number of different ways he's been able to attack the market, but he also has a unique way of entering sales as a professional, which I thought was always really cool. So I'll hand it over to you, PJ. Tell people, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do it?
You know, it is a good question. All those are good questions, and I ask them to myself all the time. I don't know. I think it's always changing. It's always
It is.
Yeah. I mean, how did I get into sales? You know, it really, like, I've told this story on a few different podcasts, or at least one other one. But when I think about like my first time where I felt like I was doing sales was really in high school. I was like downloading software on the internet, burning it to CDs and selling it to my friends in high school, you know, like games, downloading music off of Napster, like the new Eminem would come out and I would download it and burn a bunch of CDs. And I had a whole thing. I had like people coming up to my locker all the time, to buy software. So if I really, pare it back, that's when it came from. And then I worked at Best Buy for a long time. I was like the best warranty salesman at Best Buy. We had this thing called product replacement plan, where like you would buy a CD player and then for an extra $10, it would basically give you a warranty on it for 2 years or whatever.
Yep.
I was selling those at the highest clip out of anybody. And it's just because, I don't know, I just like talking to people. But
Me too.
I've done a bunch of different things. I was a high school teacher for a while. I worked on a garbage truck with my brother. And then I studied to become an actuary, which they do like risk assessment for insurance companies. They assign current value to future risk is really what they do. Anyway, I studied for that test and I got one of the tests done and I got a job at an insurance group health brokerage, and then figured out pretty quickly that like I was doing a lot of work for the person that was selling the insurance, and they were making maybe 5 to 10 times more money than I was, but I was doing a lot of work. So right then is when I was like, you know what, man, I think I'm in the wrong desk here. Like there's something wrong. Like I'm making $60,000 a year as an analyst, and this guy is a boat, and I just like built this whole proposal for him. Like, what am I doing wrong? So I interviewed them and basically asked them, like, how do I get to what you guys are doing? And he said, you got to get really good at doing cold calls. So I was like, all right. And I started selling life insurance over the phone, where I was like, I had a list of leads that came from, they were mortgage protection leads. So this was like the bottom of the barrel. It was the most brutal way to ever sell insurance, which is when somebody buys a house, they get a letter in the mail that says, if you want to, we offering you mortgage protection insurance, which is basically like life insurance. Like if you were to die and you weren't able to pay your mortgage anymore, this will cover you so that your spouse, this will pick up the payments for you. So that, so if the person filled the paper out and sent it back, we would call them. However, because I was just starting, I wasn't getting brand new, fresh leads. I was getting mortgage protection leads from 4 years ago. So somebody filled out the paper and sent it back 4 years ago, and every insurance agent in Seattle had called that person for the last 4 years.
Oh my God! Wow.
So that's how I learned how to do cold calling. I mean, you have like two heartbeats. It's like 1,000, 2,000, click. That's it. That's
Yep.
the amount of time that you had. So I got pretty slick.
Yep.
And I had to go full cycle. So I had to call the person, set up the meeting in person, go to their house, and then get them to sign a contract and leave with it. And that's the only way I got paid. I didn't do that for very long. Wasn't a lot of money in it. But I definitely like earned my oats, you know. I figured out how
Yep.
to, you know, get over making cold calls and whatever. And then when I got into tech, so I went from there. I was driving Uber at the same time that I was doing that, and then I thought, well, dude, I'm in Seattle. I could do the sales thing. Let me just apply for one of these tech companies. And I applied to 2 jobs, one of them as an SDR.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already been a high school teacher. I was 30 years old, so that was 7 or 8 years ago. And I pretty much, like, you know, was at the top of the leaderboard like right away and never really looked back. But that's, I don't know, that's a quick flyby of how I got into sales, just because you thought that part was interesting.
Oh, I always think that part is interesting. Even for me, like, I don't know if you ever was in the game of selling Cutco knives. Did you ever know about Cutco knives?
No,
By
I
Vector Marketing?
never got to do that though. When I was
I did that.
I did a few different, like, I did the life insurance thing, but then I also did employee benefits insurance, so like short-term disability, long-term disability, all that stuff. And so I had to go to businesses. I was going to like bowling alleys and mechanic shops, and then trying to sell those guys insurance. And the rub there was
Wow.
that they could lower their payroll taxes, because the insurance, all
Yeah.
benefits came out pre-tax. They were all pre-tax
Mhm.
deductions. So that meant that the employer would have less payroll taxes for their employees. So that's how I sold that.
Decent deal. Why not?
It just
Right?
it gave me an idea of, like, in a business, how and why does anybody make a decision? And it's really like, can you make the company more money? And like, if you can save them a few bucks on payroll insurance, you know, payroll deductions or whatever, then they'll at least let you come in and talk to the employees and see if you can get a couple signups. So I made a
Yeah, it's always the way. You gotta find some entry point, and it is always an uphill battle of going through it. My first job where I got the most cash was as a pizza delivery dude in my town. So there was times people were so oblivious, they had such clean notes that they would accidentally give me $100.
whoa.
So like they give you, hey, here's 100, take a $20 tip, but they didn't realize the extra 100 was underneath. And after I got in the car, I'm 17, I'm taking it. I took it and ran. I sold Cutco knives. Those were like $1,200 knife sets that I had to sell to all my friends and family. And then when I wanted to get into capital markets, that's when I got my first nab of cold calling, where they gave me the Rolodex, call these people, ask them for money. And through those 3 experiences, particularly, it leads to the next segment that I talk about with every one of my guests, and it's accelerated learning. And accelerated learning for me is through serious failure. Fast failure, but bouncing back from that failure and actually understanding what the lessons were. So, one thing for you, you've been through many experiences, many careers in your life. What was the most profound failure you ever experienced, and it's helped shaped who PJ is today?
Oh man, that's a good one. I feel like I'm at a job interview, you know. Tell us about a time you failed. Well, I mean, really, the first thing that comes to mind is the first time I dropped out of school, or like, I went to college right after high school, and
Mm-hmm.
2.5 years later, I dropped out and didn't graduate. I ended up going back and finishing, but
Mm-hmm.
really, when I look back at it, like I was pointing to a bunch of external things that were all like, this guy was messed up and this was fucked up and that guy is an asshole. And, pointing the finger at everything around me when really what I needed to do is look at the way that I was conducting myself and how I got myself
Yeah.
in situations. So I think that for me was like just having that experience to look back at really just changed my mindset about like, okay, like control the things that you can control, and the stuff that's outside of your control is like not worth worrying about, or pointing the finger at, or placing blame on, or attributing the cause and effect to things that were outside of your control, right? Like you can only control what's in here. So I think, I mean, if I'm being honest, like that was probably the most profound thing, is just realizing that I was being a jerk.
And let me ask you a question. Did you get that from the Steve Covey book? 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
No,
No.
I've heard of it. I've never read it though.
That is exactly what he said. It's funny how some people just instinctively have those things. So another thing that I always thought was interesting was you never did sales before, but you came into the market with a knack for writing, linguistics, really.
Mm-hmm.
You had a knack for very short, sharp emails that were very different from the whole lengthy essays that most people sold,
Mm-hmm.
and you achieved mind-blowing results. What got you there?
So I had a really good English teacher in high school, who was always saying, trim the fat, trim the fat. Like we did all these essays all the time where, the typical high school kid, you tell them you got to write a 5-page paper. There's going to be 2.5 pages of bullshit there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He was like very good about like, just crossing everything out and be like, this is all garbage. Like, stop saying the same thing over and over again. Like, get to the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's one part of it. Another part of it, I think, is just having like a business sense of like, just like we were talking about earlier. What makes somebody do something, or how do people make decisions in a business context?
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to distill what that is pretty quickly, like figuring out exactly what the decision points are and then focusing on those, and sticking to that, and not really straying away from it too much. The third part I'd say is probably like more psychology. So just like the simple things of how people make decisions when you're interrupting their day with an email, what makes
Mm-hmm.
it or not. And I just think about like my own inbox, like what would make me read something or not, right? Like when I get an email, now I've done head of sales roles and in a bunch of different contexts where I get a bunch of sales reps messaging me, and when I look at it, if it looks like a sales
Mm-hmm.
rep email, if it reads like a marketing email, it sounds like it's marketing language, I immediately say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can ignore that. I can delete that
Yep.
inbox. It actually is going to make me
Yep.
feel good. It's going to make me feel good if I can get rid of that, because I'm like clearing a task out, right? So I'm trying to short circuit that reaction. So and that all came from Justin Michael. Like, got to give the guy
Okay.
the most credit, because like the short, choppy, casual business speak, um, way out with imperfect grammar, way outperforms your marketing style, like typical email that's um, obviously like written by a marketing team. If you can make it look like it was written by a person, and it gets straight to the point, and it focuses on the right business cases, like that's essentially like the 3 parts of how I was able to put together the kind of copy that I've done for all my clients.
Wow. So one thing that I get asked a lot, and my new trick for picking up chicks now that I'm separated is, as bad as it is, I just show them the bank account. And that's been working quite well. I've got a lot of Instagram profiles, a lot of numbers. But one thing I always hear is, I don't know how to sell. I would never be able to get into sales. Yeah, but Shane, you've got the gift of the gab. And my thing is, you don't realize anybody can get into sales. So
Mhm.
if there was a message you could give to your prime example, you were a teacher, you did other things and then got into sales. But for those people that are, they're stuck right now. They hate their. How many people have you spoke to that fucking hate their job? They hate waiting at the restaurant. They hate working for Deliveroo. They hate working for Amazon. They hate working for the food companies. The 9 to 5 bullshit. Like, people don't want it. They want to be in charge of their life. Sales
Mhm.
can't give you that. So what advice? What one thing would you tell somebody who's thinking, watching our podcast, and saying, "Look, I want to give this a shot." What would you tell them to give them that leap of faith?
It's gonna sound stupid and cheesy, but it's really just believing in yourself, believing that you can do it. Like, confidence goes a long way. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you set your mind to something and you decide that you want to do it and you find a good motivation for it, like that's all you need. I mean, it's like this. I guess for me, it was just always this determination that I'm going to get what I want out of this world, and what's the only thing stopping me is me. The only person that can beat me is me.
You're 100% right. And then, look, through that, you've probably got a massive amount of learnings. And like I said, accelerated learning is through massive failure. So one thing that is very important in everything that I talk about is, what do you learn from the shit you do? What do you learn from the mistakes you make? So you've had a very, very, very profound failure in your life that has helped shape who you've become today. But then there's one thing you learned from somebody, and that really changed your life. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean. I met this guy, and he was like, "What? This is when I was doing heroin, intravenously shooting heroin. I was a 1 year addict. I'd been to rehab, jail a couple of times." And he said, "Look at you. Look at the fucking state of you. Have you seen yourself in the mirror?" And I said, "Yeah, but it's whatever." He said, I want to tell you one thing. When you die and you go to heaven and you meet your maker, you're going to meet the man you were supposed to be."
Mm.
And for me, I was like, hmm. So I'm going to meet Shane 2.0, who never fucked up, kept his health in order, accomplished all his dreams, didn't get in trouble, followed through on the things he wanted to do. And he's a fucking G. He's a boss. I don't want to meet that dude and feel like a punk. So, how much of a gap do I have to fill to be the person that, if
Mm.
I did meet that extremely well built individual, I'm never too short? So for you, what's the biggest learning you've ever got in your life that really, like, your creed lives by it?
Yeah, I would say don't burn any bridges. Running your mouth
All
doesn't
right.
get you anywhere. It does not. And I'll say it from the other angle is that all of the success that I've been able to generate for myself has come from my ability to help other people and sort of traverse across a network that I wasn't involved with yet. So when I got into the tech industry,
Mm,
30 years old, I had no contacts, I didn't know anybody. But I can't even explain to you how many different opportunities came from me just directly helping other people out and trying to connect
mm,
as much as possible. Like, good example, first SDR job that I had, I was crushing meetings and really like found one really good account executive that I was setting up because I knew that she could close the deals. I just talked to her the other day. I knew that she
mm,
could close and that my meetings were going to go through and that they were going to count for something and I was going to make money off of it. So I filled up her calendar and fed her. I just knew that that was going to work out for me. Unbeknownst,
mm,
there was other account executives that were watching that. We had a 9-person SDR team, and I was lighting it up. I was stuck at the top of the leaderboard, and all the other AEs
mm,
like, man, he's feeding Erin. Like how is she getting all this stuff out of this guy? 2 years later, one of the account executives that I didn't even know this person, recommended me for a job for an enterprise business development team. And I ended up on the global strategic account team selling to the biggest companies in the world just because
Wow.
and didn't know, like that wasn't my point while I was doing it. I was kind of looking out for myself, but also just, like trying to do a really good job trying to help the person out. Like there's been countless examples of that. And there definitely could have been an opportunity for me to have a gruff attitude about it and say, man, this job sucks and we're not set up for success, and complain like all the other guys are doing. But they didn't have
Mm-hmm.
the same opportunities that I did because of the attitude.
Mate, that's solid. And look, for the people that don't know, what kind of salary, what territory are tech sales salaries in? And I'm talking, give people a range. They don't believe me when I say it. These chumps are make some of, I don't mean that in a bad way, but I couldn't live off it. 25, 26, 27, 28,000 pounds in the UK is literally the average. And a person, a British citizen that becomes a fucking bum and does nothing and claims benefits from the government will make more than the person who busts his balls and makes 28 grand a year. So tell people, what is the sales salary territory that you are aware of?
There's a quite a wide range, but it goes all entry levels like 50K US dollars base salary plus bonuses.
Yep.
You get commission on top of that, all the way up to $500,000 a year, easily.
Wow.
And
There
I
you
worked,
go.
like when I was on that global strategic account team. That's what the reps that I was supporting were doing. I wasn't making that much money at the time. I was still, earning my stripes or whatever, working my way up. But they had like 3 to 5 accounts of the biggest companies in the world. I'm talking Nike, AT&T, eBay, PayPal,
Ooh.
those kinds of accounts, Microsoft, whatever, those
Yep.
kinds of accounts. They'd have three to five of them, and like 1 or 2 of those deals would close, and they'd make $300,000 easily, 3 to 500K each of those reps.
Yeah. This is what I'm saying. People need to get in. People need to get involved if they want to set up their futures. You need to get involved in sales. So, last question. Here's the juicy one. So, PJ, you're gonna go back in time.
Yeah.
You're gonna see yourself, 18-year-old PJ. He's gonna be sitting on a bench at the park. He's chilling. Absolutely everything is okay. You're going to walk up to him and you're going to sit down right next to him and you're going to say, hey, dude, I'm you from the future.
Mhm.
I've got one chance and one thing to tell you to get to where I am, but in half the time. This is the roadmap to success, young man. What's the one thing you tell him to do?
Get sober.
Yeah, the answers you get on this is somebody said get Bitcoin, like buy Bitcoin. Like, bro, the answers are incredible. All right, so tell me, why do you say that? Because I was drinking like a fish from the keg. I was keg handstand king.
Well, it's funny you
Why
mentioned,
do you say that?
because I mean, it's like this is just an example, but it'll give you a good idea of where I'm going with it. Is like I remember distinctly being at a party, and it wasn't Bitcoin, but it was Ethereum, and I was talking to this guy at a party, and he was telling me that this new it's like this new Bitcoin, and it's 25 cents each, and it's gonna be huge.
I remember that.
I remember like being so like I remember going like, I'm supposed to remember what this guy is saying, and there's no fucking way that I'm gonna remember to do this to me. And like I'm like in the experience, and I was like, I know that I'm blowing it right now. Like I know for a fact. And there's countless of those, you know. Like, but once I
Yeah.
get my act straight is when like things, I don't know, got a lot easier for it to come together. I think some of it just comes with age. You know, some of it just comes with
Yeah.
a little bit older. I turned 38 this year. So, you know, I'm a little bit older and wiser, and I've seen the movie a couple of times. So, you know, things become more clear in the rear view. But if I had to tell 18-year-old me what to do, I'd be like, dude, I'm half of my life ago, I would say straighten up.
I think I couldn't agree more. Definitely couldn't agree more. So as people leave off on this show, they want to take value home. And I always give one growth hack from my guests that they use. And I'm talking after this show, after they see this, they can literally go on their PC, go on their computer, and they can do something that will have a change next week, that will affect something they do next week. Let's say one of the things I've always done is validating data, right? A very simple one. Kevin Hopp had a great hack the other day. Everybody has come up with something very, very interesting. But what's one game changing thing, activity, system, process, software the audience can take away and use and start getting results right away? And this is Dub from PJ.
I'll give you two. I'll give you two really quick. One of them, validating data. Yes, that's a great point. Call Aditya at Task Minions, and he's out of India. He's excellent. We'll validate the data for you for pennies on the dollar for compared to what you can get in the US. If you're taking information out of Zoom info and building lists, send it to him first, have him validate the information, and then send it back to you. It costs a couple extra dollars, but you can afford it, and you'll make a shitload of money. That's just a quick one. I tell everybody that. And I don't even have any kind of referral bonus from Aditya, but I've used him in every project that I've done in the last 3 years, and he's been lights out every time. So that's one. The second one is, this is what everybody says, is figure out how to use ChatGPT to automate something that you're doing already. And I'll tell you an example like that I just did. I'm working for a client. I'm going to call them Acme. I'm working for Acme, and I'm trying to go get them some businesses. I'm trying to get them to. They gave me a list of 5 accounts that they want to get into, and I'm trying to help connect the dots, make introductions, and get them some meetings in these 5 accounts. So I went to ChatGPT and I typed in, how does a company like Acme help a company like Beta, whoever company 1 was.
Yep.
And then I said, can you write me a creative campaign based on the previous answers? And it did it in it took me 30 seconds of something that would have probably taken me at least half an hour to figure out.
You're right.
Another one that I did is I needed to write case studies for the last company that was at Immersa. So what I did was I went to Immersa's customers and I interviewed them, and I got the call. I had the note taker on. I got the call transcript, and I literally copied and pasted the call transcript into ChatGPT and said, write a B2B case study based on the previous conversation, and it was perfect immediately.
So we're gonna do ChatGPT testimonials.
If you're not figuring out how to use that, just getting creative about it, thinking about it, what kind of things can I prompt it with, and testing it out every day, you're doing something wrong.
100%. I'm all right. So quick one on that. Where I don't know. I go to YouTube. I type in ChatGPT. You get all these bozos coming up with this. Make millions. Make 80 million in 1 week with ChatGPT. It's all fucking bullshit. But where does one start in their journey to actually start using it? For some people, don't even know what it is. That's very, very alarming to me. But if you know about ChatGPT, you enter a prompt, you get an answer. Where would you say someone go to start? It could even be you. But what would you say?
Go to openai.com, sign up for a free account, and just start messing around with the thing. Limit test it. See what you can get out of it. Because you're right. It's a gold mine for content creators because just like everybody is trying to do a search to figure out how do I use this thing, how are people doing it. So you get a lot of these like basically bullshit videos of people that, they come up with a catchy like clickbait headline of how you're going to make $1 million at GPT, but they don't really know. It's like, if they did know, they wouldn't be putting it on fucking YouTube. That doesn't even make any sense.
You're so right.
So it's literally just go start messing around with the thing, like, and just see what's possible. And like that would literally just be like, go play with it and see what you can get out of it.
Yep.
And the more, it's just like anything else, like it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you ask it a dumb question, you're going to get a dumb answer. And if you start getting creative to try to think about like, what can this thing do for me? I bet you'd be surprised. It's pretty incredible.
I think you hit the nail on the head on that one too, PJ. Look, if anybody wants to learn more about this mastermind sitting in this chair, where do they find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. You can. I think my cell phone number's there. You can call me, text me if you want. Pretty easy to get a hold of.
And what's the best thing for people to call you about?
Business development, creative campaigns, enterprise business development. That's my main thing right now.
All right, cool. Well, look, PJ, I'm definitely going to be having you on the show. As you see, my little scribble pads have all my notes. And I'm going to chop this up. I'll get it over to you too. Don't hang up after I end this. But look, guys, whoever's been on the show today, whoever's watched, like, subscribe, share this motherfucker. Because, look, we're bringing you value. We're bringing you content. We're bringing you things that's going to change the way you do business. And it changes the way you actually make money. So I'll catch you next week. Thank you, PJ, again. And we'll see you soon.